Hello, my name is Alexander Arnesen. I am a Android tech lead in TV2, but today I'm going to talk about something completely different. I'm going to talk about AI tools, which is pretty much what everyone's talking about these days, and specifically what I've been kind of like experimenting with and working with in Stable Diffusion, which is like an image generation tool. I was originally gonna hold this talk like before summer, so everything that was originally intended for the talk is already like way outdated. Not really. I will kind of do this talk like from the I don't know, a year ago maybe, when this actually started. These things started getting open sourced and stuff, to the big new tools that kind of have been released this summer. So, Stable Diffusion. And every big like AI talk always starts with something that is generated by AI. But I thought I'd do the opposite. So this is actually a picture I've taken. It's not an AI generated image. But you can, of course, create great looking images using these kind of tools with AI. But I lied again, that's also an image I took. But you can. But this is an actual AI generated image using kind of like the latest Stable Diffusion tools. And even creating these kinds of images that I like initially, if let's say you wanted to describe this image and build it using an AI tool, you could say, create a prompt for something similar, and you'd get an AI generated image that could at least fool some people. But before we kind of go into like the biggest, newest tools, let's try to talk about the basics. So the AI image tools like Stable Diffusion work in a very similar way that we've gotten used to around ChatGPT and the LLVMs, where you can give it a prompt and get an output. And with Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, DALL-E, all these tools, you can of course start very basic. So you can say you'd want a picture of a suit. These images, the rest of the images are pretty much all AI generated by the prompt I've been telling you here, or I don't even really remember all the prompts I've used for all the images, but that's the thing. But a basic prompt usually gives you a basic image. A picture of a suit gives you a picture of a suit. But they also give you a huge variance of images. So using this simple prompt will give you like a million different types of suits, different colors, different looks, and different like settings. But the big thing, especially Stable Diffusion, that is kind of built up around it, has been a community that has been trying to kind of control these outputs and give you more control of what you want to generate and how you want it to look. So, and the first step of that is just modifying your prompts, modifying the text inputs to the models. So going from a picture of a suit to something way more detailed, such as this long prompt: professional product photo of a red suit floating, suspended midair, intricate fabric details. Yeah, all of these details will give you something where I ran this 4 times and you get something similar in each image. You're still not in control of what comes out, but you at least have a style or a look that you can replicate. And most of these, like all of this, is not just for Stable Diffusion. This is for like Midjourney, DALL-E, all the other like easier to get a hold of tools. And you can, of course, like, let's say you want to change the subject, but you want to keep this kind of style. It's easy, you change the subject, but the style will be consistent throughout. And you can use it just to generate cool images. And most of these images, this image here and these, have actually been prompted on custom models. So the initial model that Stable Diffusion or Stable Diffusion released was pretty basic, and it gave you like not hugely detailed photos, but the community has fine-tuned models and they've built further on them. And that brought me to the only logical conclusion that I had to buy a super expensive GPU and train it them myself. So if you want to look up these kind of custom models, these can easily be run on pretty like modest hardware today with the newer tools. You can run these totally local on your own machine. And the first tool I kind of dug into and tried using was, before that, this is an example of one of these custom models. This is a custom model that specializes in realistic people. So a large group of people have trained a version of Stable Diffusion and targeted it towards realistic people and how they look. So all these pictures are generated by people that don't exist. So, and in my opinion, the quality of these, even though they're still very low resolution, all of the images from the older 1.5 and 2.1 models are 512 by 512 resolution. So they're not highly resolute, but you can also upscale stuff. But I think I can easily be fooled today by any of these like more realistic human models that are created. And the first way I tried to train these models myself was with a tool called Dreambooth. And it's actually a tool that Google built for their own thing, and it was implemented into the like open source Stable Diffusion by the open source community. So when this can essentially, you can take a token, a string, a person, something, and you can give it a Dreambooth is pretty limited. You only have to have between like 5 to 20 images, and you can usually train a pretty decent model of whatever subject or style that you're trying to train. And the first thing I tried was actually, there's this, my brother-in-law has this store where he sells coffee, and he has this animal, this coffee animal. And I thought, and he always he creates new coffees, and he creates kind of like new versions of it. So my first idea to get like something useful out of this was to actually build a model that could recognize this coffee animal. And let's see. And when I tried that, I didn't do very well. I was able to kind of like get the animal itself within the model, and it kind of like recognized it. And some of the images, like this in the middle down here, it looked very correct. But these other images, it rarely wanted to hold the cup of coffee. It actually always kind of like put it like floating midair in front of it. And you always have these like kind of like undercooked or overcooked issues with these models. If you spend too little time training, it won't know the thing you've trained it for. If you spend too much training it on a specific subject, it'll never render it in different ways. And that was actually the model I rendered this guy with. It always rendered the creature in like perfectly, but it wouldn't give it a hat. It wouldn't give it a different style. It wouldn't change it in any way. It will always kind of like specific. It could probably be useful because it could change like the backgrounds and where it was, but not the animal itself. And the next step, which Dreambooth was pretty much more clearly made for, was training it on just images of me. I said, these are not AI generated, by the way. These are the images I fed it to train it on me and see if I could actually get it to generate new images of me. And I'll be honest, I made a lot of bad models. Like a lot of them just didn't work. You had to run these things like multiple times until I got like the settings correct and everything to make it work. But when you did, things got pretty good. These are just a set of at least the best model I was able to create at that time of me. And you can probably guess kind of like the prompts of these. Like, what do you think the first one is? Anyone? Yep. And Half-Life. Yeah, that's actually Mario in Lord of the Rings. I don't know why, but it worked. This one is Breaking Bad, yeah. Anyone got that one? It's like Metal Gear Solid, I think. This is like 70s Star Trek, and this is just I think I actually put in like Ramsay Bolton, like the really horrible guy from Game of Thrones, and this was just a Christmas party that we were going to, so just me at a Christmas party in different thing. The first one here, that's me in space holding a golden egg. I don't remember why. This shows, of course, some of the weaknesses. It can't do text. Like no way. You can never tell it print this piece of text on a thing, and it'll work. At least this model, but it does get better. This one is like a Pixar style thing, and this is actually a pretty cool. I've also used outpainting, which is a tool, and I'll show that a bit later. I've met Baby Yoda. I've met Baby Yoda as Groot. And I don't know what this is, some psychedelic experience, I don't know. A member of the Beatles and as a Funko Pop. And even these tools can be pretty useful now. But I was trying to, just for this talk, since I work in TV2, I asked one of my colleagues can I build a model of someone everyone knows? And I tried to make a model of Jan-Henrik Børslid, which is like a TV anchor or TV personality in TV2. And to be honest, I kind of failed. I tried like multiple settings. The thing that worked on me didn't work as well on him. I don't know why. I did get like a few like decent, like I got Star Trek again, I got the Star Wars, but I had to try a lot. And I don't know, like especially the eyes kind of just didn't work here. But if you want to try this out yourself and you don't want to like build everything as well, I think like the Photo AI is a pretty cool like website where you can actually, you have to pay for like getting this set up and stuff, but if you want just a set of images that is trained on your images, that's a really cool site. And it's actually like the ease of use of this tool is pretty cool because this is like built by one guy, and he's kind of built this from scratch. This is a pretty cool tool. But I want to go through a few of the other parts as well. The next thing I kind of like got into is a thing that the community has built around this again, which is a tool you can run on top of this again to kind of like rein in what you're creating and how it looks. And that's something called ControlNet. And ControlNet takes an input image and generates this kind of like, it can generate various forms of these, but if you take this is the office of my previous job, but if you take this as an input, it'll generate this kind of like line drawing of the input, and it'll use that as a base for the images that you want to generate. So let's say you wanted kind of this office space in a different style, you can do that, because it'll retain the look and feel of whatever you put in. This office was kind of boring at the time, but we wanted it kind of like in the style. I worked at a place called Bulla Bank before, and it had this like red and blue look. So I thought, okay, how could we style this in like a red and blue look? So I first like created this image here. It was like, yeah, let's do red and blue financial stuff. But they said it was missing a bar, so you just said with a bar, and then you get the next one. And I don't know, something more like bright and shiny. There was an internal joke that like initially the name of the bank was going to be like Melon Bank or something, so I created the Melon version of it. But we also tried, this is the Sparebank Vest office downtown here, and they have these like stairs. Initially I of course created it with the Melon style and the Bulla style, but the most fun was, of course, to build it as a water park, because you can actually. It was really cool when you had like these slide looks and feels. I tried. This was a very low resolution image. I don't know why, but it kind of didn't matter for this exact task. But I tried like, I was thinking, hey, what could we do with like Media City, the city we're in, the building we're in now? What if it was like what if TV2 was going to build like The Last of Us in Norway? You could like get sort of like a dilapidated, apocalyptic look and feel to it, or like the other apocalyptic scenario where Apple takes over the world. and you can kind of like get these in like different styles, looks. And I also tried stealing my son's Spider-Man Lego, and you can get these. These are a separate tool that kind of like looks at a character or person, and it kind of like creates a stance, or like it drags out the way the character stands. And this is actually used to create pretty cool videos. So they kind of like ran this on each video frame, and you can have like a person dancing, and it extracts these and actually just generates videos. But I just generated images of Spider-Man in different settings in this case. And this was just the fun part. I don't know why this is useful, but it's fun. I took like a movie poster, did the same thing, and replaced it with another character. And here's another pretty cool feature. This was an accident when I did it, but you can see they are different aspect ratios. So like the first one is wider, and then I just input when I like call the function. I took the wrong parameters, but then it actually fills in because she doesn't have legs, or she probably has legs, but she isn't shown in the image. When that got stretched wider, it'll actually it draws out and tries to figure out what is the next here. And you can of course also combine this with the dream booth, so I can put myself in the movie poster, kind of cross-eyed for some reason, I don't know, but you can, if you build these things, you can kind of combine them and build pretty cool stuff. I also tried to do that with the Jan Henrik Bosley photo model thing. Again, I had to run this a few times before it got good, but it got something out of it. But these are low res, and you're often stuck with kind of like, especially eyes, hands, again text, which is not always as good. But this is a really cool usage of it. You can try these QR codes on your phone. Just point your camera to this and see if you can get it. So these are not made by me. I'm not able to build this quality. This is like you'll get to the people who are building this specific model with this QR code, if you're able to scan it. Were you able to scan it? Yeah. Ah, good. And they're working on building a custom model that will actually generate these with, like, you put in a text. And I did try. I found a model that someone had released and open sourced, and I tried to build these. These are not as cool. You can see they're more kind of like just a QR code printed on top of an image, more like it. But these will. Do these work? Can anyone try these? Yeah, okay. And then you'll get the TV2. I think that'll run. Take you to TV2 Play. But the kind of like rendering where you can like change the aspect ratios of images. That was something I thought, hey, that might be useful for like us in TV2 Play. On the homepage of TV2, you have these like images of shows and stuff, and we have like portrait versions, landscape versions, and I bet there's a lot of like job cropping these, and maybe sometimes they don't have the like assets for actually having like landscape versions. And I thought, well, if we could just generate those out of the original image. So in this case, this is the input image, and I've said, yeah, we're going to make this in a portrait format. And it actually kind of like invented the roof and the table, and it made his hands funny. But some of these turned out pretty good. Like this one was better, I think, except maybe Dag Otto's foot seems to be not really there, and it kind of mistook the image for a window. I think the picture that's behind in there, and it kind of thinks it's a window and made a shade for it. This one is where I took a portrait one in and tried to like generate a more landscape aspect ratio image, and it worked pretty good. But you can actually see like a seam right here. You can see where it stopped and where it started generating, and that's kind of like something that happens at times, and you often have to like just redo. And you've kind of seen Photoshop's tool of this. That's pretty much the best in class right now. Photoshop, where you can actually like draw out from a single image. This one was not good. I don't know why. Like I didn't know the clown got a weird haircut, and it didn't, and it mistook where her hand was. What like it didn't. She has her hand forward, not backwards. But it's so this could be useful with some tweaks and some usages, but who knows? This one I actually prompted it for like specifically like 90s, because this show takes place in the 90s. So I wanted to add 90s style to the generation of these images, and I don't know if pink hair and all those are 90s style, but it did some, and it just generated a pocket that her hand was in for some reason. But again, these are often low res, and this can be used pretty well for upscaling as well. And one of the ways you can do it, there are a few models that are specific for upscaling images that are low res, but you can also kind of like tile it. So you can just take a portion of the image and tile them to upscale. An example of that was, again, my brother-in-law coffee guy. He found this image that he found kind of funny for some reason. I don't know why, but he wanted to upscale to a higher degree. I think it's like a coffee thing. And I took this like very low res image, and I don't know if you can see it so well on this, but yeah, it's sharper at least. But using these for upscaling could be a good use case. And then I just found online a tool called Roop, which someone had built like into this thing, and it is like a face replacement tool. And this kind of speaks to kind of like, there is a dark side to this image generation thing, because this tool was built by someone for like face replacement in videos. So you can like you can take a single image of a person and face replace a separate video. And this tool was like, actually they stopped development on it because people were using it for things they didn't want to use it for. So it's actually discontinued, and it's kind of cheating because it isn't really image generation. It's just replacement. It's just face. It's pretty much what Snapchat does with every filter you do with those. But you can get some cool. I actually used it for like my team. So I built like, not everyone knows these people, but they're right beyond there. If you're in the room, you can look at them. Where we just and yeah, you know him maybe. But these were pretty good as well. But they were very specific. They initially detect a face in the tool and replaces it. So could be useful, but not really something that'll probably not really live for much longer. I tried that with Jan Henrik Brosley as well, and made him into some Warhammer. I don't know what these people are called. Yeah. And video is also a thing that's kind of starting teething. You're able to take an image and generate a video out of it. This is just built with a tool called like Runway ML, I think it's called, where you can actually just send it images and you can generate videos from it. But then the big thing happened like through this summer, which was the newer version of Stable Diffusion. The resolution, like the native resolution of all the images it was trained on, and on the images that it will output, was increased from 512 by 512, so it doubled to 1024. And to be honest, it's a pretty huge improvement in my opinion. This was one of like the first images I created with this, and it's almost like the screen here is low res, but it's the kind of quality you get from often way like simpler prompt is pretty amazing in the newer Stable Diffusion XL. It probably requires a bit more hardware to run, because it's like, but it's pretty easy to run on a local machine. But the quality is pretty, like the quality increase in my opinion, especially like in details and stuff, seemed pretty amazing. This was when like Barbie and Oppenheimer, so I tried to just generate that, like Barbieheimer, that was the thing. I haven't watched any of the movies, so no spoilers. And this was just like generic. I don't really remember what I had here. And this is a prompt. A mountain climber in red shorts climbing a steep wall over a Norwegian fjord close up from side. This was a prompt I used in DALL-E for about, I don't know, it's not even a year ago. And using this prompt then gave you a image of what you're asking for, right? It's a climber in red shorts over a Norwegian fjord. But like at that point, I thought that was just amazing, that you could just tell it what you wanted, you got this image. And you kind of ignored like that its foot doesn't really look at all, and it was very low res, and just I think they always like faced away from the camera to avoid generating faces at this point. But today, use the same thing, same prompt, and you get something that is way more detailed and higher quality, and pretty amazing. I actually tried like and you can, with the newer, you can say, I want it in a pixel art format, or I want it in the style of Street Fighter 2, and you'll get the same prompt in these things with very little, these are just this prompt on Stable Diffusion XL, just in the style of pixel art and in the style of Street Fighter 2. And this is a bunch of people in a nightclub. And this, I ran both of these like yesterday, I think. And this is the DALL-E version, and that is the Stable Diffusion XL version with no other inputs. But we could maybe, but like even if these are like simple with simple inputs, giving Stable Diffusion XL as well these kind of like more intricate, detailed, it's still a very good way to do it if you wanted to generate specific images, is to like add detail and add like specific prompts. But maybe we can try it out. I have a few pre-created ones, but we can generate them now, so whatever images that shows up will show up. Let's create a award-winning photography, a cute purple monster holding a sign saying TV2 by Pixar. We can actually see if this can do some actual text. Ah, that's close. Yeah. It could be a new mascot for TV2, but we'll see. But this, I tried to like just get a few like things we can like. Let's say we wanted to regenerate the image I started the talk with. The sun is setting, pink skies, snowy mountains, realistic, appear in the foreground, muted lighting. I'm now just generating 2 images each time, just in case we don't get... Yeah. In the same vein, at least. But let's say we wanted to use this for creating a new app icon for not TV2, but some streaming app. Generate the entire phone. That's fine. This can often, like, let's say you wanted to use this as like a, I don't know, like inspiration or something to start with. Or if you wanted to generate some cool art. Have anyone played Baldur's Gate 3? Yeah. Say we wanted to some Underdark art. And you can see these are actually kind of cool because they kind of like visualize this while you run it. So what I don't really understand like totally all the details, but what it does in practice is it generates just random noise, which is what it starts with, and then it pretty much sorts the picture until it gets what it wants. So it sorts it. But and this you kind of get a good visualization of it. Or I think like let's say you wanted to you have a restaurant, you're serving burgers, you want some cool like food photography that you want to put in your menu or something. This is getting pretty good at those kinds of things. Doesn't look good at first. But it's getting pretty good. It's up and down how like, sometimes they look just not good at all, but this one turned out decent. It's a very big burger though. Or you're a game developer, you want to generate some pixel art for your game. That's also a good use case for this. Now I'm just using like the basic model, but let's say you wanted to specialize these towards making art for a game or something like that. You could probably like use a more like specifically trained model for that. But you can get something good with not that much input, or just some you wanted to create a Age of Empires clone. You can get some pretty good images and arts around those. Or I thought this was cool. It was just creating like a movie poster in the style of I don't know, Steven Spielberg movies. Anything I should generate now that you can like just do you want something to put into this? Everyone can of course try these. Like Midjourney is probably the easiest way if you just want to try this out yourself. But running these more custom models often mean you can kind of create something a bit more cool and detailed. And what this is something that's kind of new to me as well, but I've kind of the last few weeks I've tried training these like SDXL models as well on these. You can the previous like Dream Booth way of training stuff. You create like a copy of the entire model. So these are kind of large, like 7-8 gig files that are the entire models. But these LoRa's are smaller kind of additions that you train. These are kind of harder to train. While Dream Booths seems to respond easily to just a huge set of images and a single prompt, just your name and a set of 20 images. LoRa's usually need to be annotated, so you'd have to tell it what each image is, and a larger image set is usually needed. But they're very cool because you can just use the base model, and these are kind of like extensions that are from a few like 100 megs and often very small. So way easier to scale if you wanted to generate like huge amounts of these types. And I initially tried to. And these also have like the control net feature that I talked about in the SDXL model. They've added this control net feature as a LoRa, so it's like a small add-on that you can use in addition to the other tools. Initially, I tried to create like a Love Island in space and in Norway, and it actually tried to write Norway. Didn't do very well, but and I don't know, Love Island with cats, something. But these tools seem cool. But these are very early now and kind of tricky to use. Or you can this is using the like depth map, so you can do like a Pixar style of whatever thing you have. And if you do the depth version, you lose whatever text you have, while on the previous one I showed where you actually kept the text. This kind of like removes text, it just uses the depth map of the image. But I did actually manage to train one of these on myself. This is a SDXL LoRa that is trained on a much larger set of images that I did in the previous like Dream Booth version, but these are getting pretty good as well. So these I've actually trained not locally. These I've trained on a pretty cool service called like Replicate. I even tried to generate images of me doing this talk, and I tried to put it in, and it's actually it almost gets hands now. It's getting very, very close. So things are getting better and better. I wore the wrong shirt. Should have worn a blue shirt. That would be really cool. And I try to generate myself in other jobs in TV2. I don't know if that's me, but it's up and down how good it is. But what about Jan-Henrik Børsli? Could I generate a LoRa of him? No, I couldn't. That does not look like him at all, in my opinion. There are maybe something, but not really. So the next thing I tried on these LoRa's was, because these seemed more functional for training for a specific style. And I had let's see here. I had a colleague, isn't he here now? No, he wasn't there. I have a colleague, Ove, who's just a designer up in TV2, and he creates like street art in murals, so these cool kind of like wall arts. So I talked to him, and I was allowed to build a model based on his art. So this is Instagram. You can check that out. It was pretty cool. He has some pretty cool images out there. So I tried to build a model trained on these images that he created. And that actually worked out pretty well, because not all of these images are his. You can probably see what is AI generated, or what's real in this. Which of these are real? Sorry? Yeah, okay, good. It's actually, this one is real, the middle one is generated, and the right one is generated. And these are also generated using that model. The bear with the flower is also generated. This one is not. And I thought we could actually have, everyone can either scan that QR code or just go to the URL, streetart.inc. Let's see. This is something I built this week. I have no idea if it'll work with so many people using it at once, so we'll see. And we'll see. It takes quite a while to like get up and running, but now let's have a bit of a street art contest. If everyone can go in there and you get like a tiny input field, and you write down what you want street art of. First one in, good. And you can see if it'll generate some images of in Ove's style. I have no idea what that is. Have someone written Ove? Hey. A fish, good. Oh. if someone knows what they are actually generating, you can speak up. I have not built this out for actually like taking in the prompts and stuff. What's the Mario prompt here? Cool. Is someone generating multiple fish images, or are they just everyone thinking of the same thing? These seem the same. If you want to keep the images, you'll have to store them. They pretty much go away. I think there's like an in-memory thing that it'll drain in a while. I built this, like I'm not a web developer usually, so this was all built like asking ChatGPT to build a Vercel app for me, which worked pretty fine. To kind of like, yeah, and I think these look street art like and pretty cool. As for an inspirational thing, at least. Is that one of my colleagues up in... Wow, that was cool. Is there anyone, what's the prompt for the... Wow, that's... Is that a train? No. Ow. Astronaut. Cool. But I think building kind of these... Right now, building these fun tools is like the coolest part of it. And especially if you kind of can crowdsource it. I have a version that I'm next step with this is I have one now that kind of just works with a single model of me, but I want to build like a version where you can just upload a few images, train it yourself, and then you can kind of like host this thing. This is more like, I think it was cool to kind of like have this kind of like contest where everyone can kind of like just input stuff and see what you get. These are cool. I thought I'd leave some time for just either continuing this or questions or anything. Is there anything particular you'd want me to go deeper into, or any questions around these? How do you start? I think the easiest thing is to just start using more of the like tools that are out there, like either I did include this, and this is pretty much how you start. If you want to run stuff locally and have a lot of flexibility, using either ControlNet, Roop, and trying out the cutting edge stuff, you could use Automatic 1111, which is kind of like the thing that has been alive for the longest, and is a good place to at least you can just download it on your Mac or PC. A modern Mac will usually run these tools pretty well, slower than you have here, but if you have like a decent modern GPU, you can run these very well. Comfy UI is a more complex tool, but it's very cutting edge, and it can do a lot of the, especially like if you want to build out a workflow that you want to do again and again and again. So you want multiple steps of a workflow, and you want that to be repeated. That's a good way. Focus, that's the thing I used here. That's a very simple way to just text input, You can use this for more advanced tools where you want different styles. And just this is very basic, but it's a very cool and easy way to get started just generating images. If you want to check out the custom models and stuff, this page I think is the best one that I've seen now. This has like stuff that is like particularly trained towards subjects or different kinds of parts. If you're a developer or programmer and want to just develop tools using this, Replicate is the thing I've been using now, like the latest week, that I've trained this this model on, the street art model, and the model of me. And this is also incredibly simple, like that's pretty much if you have a zip file of your images somewhere and you want to train it, that's pretty much the command you'll have to run to get these models up and running. But of course, just send me a message or something if you want to know more of the details around that. And if you don't have local hardware and you just want things up and running in the cloud, RunPod is an amazing tool. It's kind of costly. It can cost a lot, like to run these GPUs at a while, but this has very cool templates that are built to set up these tools. You can just run these templates and you can get it up and running. And of course, if you just want to create images, like Midjourney is like the de facto, at least those are the ones that are the furthest in just generating images from prompts. They've actually just recently released this where you can do in-painting, where you can replace parts of the image. So you can wear different clothes or change your hair or change stuff like that. And this one is a new one, ideogram.ai. This is actually a totally, totally separate model by some guys that were at Google, I think. And this one is actually capable of doing text better. As you can see, they do a lot of text on these sample images. And this is, this you can pretty much just log into and try out. I've gotten some more. Let's see. Where did it go? Okay, more Android, good. TVs. We're able to get something entirely different. It's just what? Which one? That guy. Yeah. Yeah. I think I know who that is. Oh, that was cool. Yeah, I don't know how long this site will be live because it's pricey to run. If anything, there'll be like a buy button before you generate, but we'll see.
Can you say a bit about the cost of things?
Yes,
you can say a bit about the cost of running these things, both locally and on the cloud.
Let's see the cost in real time. This was $8 before we started now. So this cost now, $3 of runtime. But these guys are actually switching out their model, like pricing model now, where they are halving the cost for like runtime. And I mean, this is like a specialized service. If you just run GPUs in the cloud, you can probably get it cheaper if you build things more from scratch. But these have a really good API, a really good way to both train and generate stuff. They even have, and these don't. This is not all only images. So these run any like LLVMs. They have tools for music gen. I don't know if you have. Yeah. Yeah, and you can kind of like, this is a good place for like just, you can kind of like just fork these models. So you can, in theory, say, I want to build a model based on this model, and you can continue training on it. So if you find a model you like, you branch off it and work on it. Yeah.
Do all of these services keep your data that you are putting into them to train them?
I have no idea. It's probably case by case how much they keep and how they keep it. But this is Wild West at the moment, so where it ends, who knows? But again, like, I find it at least very positive that like pretty much all the coolest tools here now are based on kind of like these open source things. So we're now in a place where hopefully like we don't get like a huge like only Google will have control of these like image generation models. This is a community effort mostly. Like most of the cool like Stability AI, which builds the Stable Diffusion models, were kind of behind, but they went open source, and now they're kind of leading it back. That's kind of my feeling on it. But yeah. Anyone else? In the chat or no? No. No. Okay. But if you are wondering about these tools, I'll of course share this set of links and stuff, and just ping me on whatever, Slack or whatever service you can find me on. I'm pretty much there. Yeah. Okay.